Originally released in 1971, Ted Kotcheff's brutal yet brilliant Waking Fright is a savage exploration of masculinity, paranoia and social tension set amidst the scorching Australian outback. Based on the best-selling novel by Kenneth Cook, the film stars Gary Bond as John Grant, a schoolteacher in a one-room schoolhouse shackled in a small outback town of Tabunda. Held to his position through a financial bond with the government, Grant holds his entire existence with a deep resentment. Unfulfilled by his job, the place he inhabits, and the people who live there, he dreams of his return to Sydney, where his loving girlfriend awaits. It's the Christmas holidays, and as the harsh heat beats down, Grant embarks on his trip back to the city, where en route he requires an overnight stay in the nearby mining town of Bundanyaba. As Grant tries to familiarise himself with his new temporary surroundings, he heads to the local bar, where he meets policeman Crawford, who initiates him into the provincial practice of excessive beer drinking, and later, the enigmatic Doc, played brilliantly by Donald Pleasance.
All the little devils are proud of hell.
Do you mean you don't think the Yabba is the greatest little place on earth?
Could be worse.
How?
Supply of beer could run out.
Look, will they...
Before long, Grant is drawn to the popular, male-dominated gambling ring, and it soon dawns on him that with the right bet, he could get out of teaching forever.
$2.90 on heads.
What are you betting on, mate?
$2.90 on heads.
You're on.
Now penniless and stranded in this unknown town, where a sense of danger hangs constantly, Grant is forced to rely upon the kindness of the local townsfolk, where his experience becomes increasingly alcohol-fueled and discomforted. Proving to be an educated man, but lacking in any real-life experience, Grant struggles to fit in, and before long, his inherent prejudices begin to show through. As the beers keep coming, his stopover rapidly descends into a dread-filled nightmare, where his spirit is corrupted and his mind unravels as he proceeds to experience the worst weekend imaginable in the company of increasingly feral strangers. Waking Fright proves to be a peculiarity among Australian films. Directed by a Canadian and starring two Brits, the film played at the Cannes Film Festival in 1971, where it was nominated for the Golden Palm. However, it opened to little fanfare in Australia itself. Although some critics reflected on the film as a social document detailing the domestic sense of self, perhaps the less than favourable picture painted of the country, and specifically the small-town way of life, was less than appealing to local audiences. Putting it in blunt terms, the Melbourne Age described the picture as the most savage comment on Australia ever put to film. The film fared little better abroad, where it was released in some territories under the slightly less ambiguous title Outback. The troubled box office takings, I'm sure, were not helped by the film's notorious real kangaroo hunt scenes, which were filmed in conjunction with a sanctioned cull, but have a ferocious effect when shown on screen. Or perhaps the central character's descent into sheer hell, drenched in rage and paranoia, combined with his strange compliance as the feral masculinity before him unfolds, proved to have little appeal beyond France, where the film played for 18 weeks in Parisian cinemas. In the years following the release, beyond the cult acclaim of the so-called Ozploitation movement, the film was believed to be lost, and for many years it remained unavailable on home entertainment formats or TV broadcast, all the while building a sense of mystique among curious cinemagoers. It wasn't until the early 2000s where many of the film's elements were found, and through a period of great detective work and painstaking repair and digitisation, the film was finally restored, and eventually presented for the second time at Cannes at the request of Martin Scorsese, where this time it was greeted with a rapturous applause, along with a few obligatory walkouts. Some Australians now hold the film as being among the country's most important cultural products. In particular, the musician and writer Nick Cave proclaimed Wake in Fright as the best and most terrifying film about Australia in existence, and it has had a notable influence upon the new generation of the country's filmmakers, from Andrew Dominic, who made Chopper, to Snowtown director Justin Kurzel, who noted, "It tapped into something in the Australian psyche I'd never seen before in the movies."
You won't drink with me. What's wrong with you?
What's the matter with you people, huh? You sponge on you, burn your house down, murder your wife, rape your child, that's all right. Not have a drink with you, not have a flaming bloody drink with you, that's a criminal offense, that's the end of the bloody world.
You're mad, you bastard.
For me, Wake in Fright holds up with the very best films of the 1970s, and today remains a fierce classic that deserves to be seen.